running from the man, yeah, the madman's coming, yeah, the man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Blood moves on.
Hello, wackos. Welcome to another episode of Without a Country. I am Corinne Fisher. I am your host. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate you very much. We are here in the studio. Before I forget, tomorrow night I am doing the second mayoral debate live watch along. It is going to be at 7 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow, meaning Thursday. So it's Thursday, June 12th at 7 p.m. Eastern time. The debate airs on Spectrum News New York 1, and I will be doing a live stream watch along of that. If you missed my first watch along, I have to say it's some of my best work. It's some of my best work. I actually had a journalist reach out who I love, who I'm familiar with her work, and said that she watched it and enjoyed it, which has made me feel really good because I was really proud of it. It doesn't have a ton of views. Obviously, it's a pretty niche subject matter. Not that many people even watch the debates in general, although I will say that I saw the stats for how many people watched the first mayoral debate, and it's a lot more than usual. It's, close to as how many people even voted in the last mayoral election. So it just shows that more people are interested in this, and I think have learned their lesson, perhaps from electing Eric Adams and seeing that he was not fit for this job. And so that was a wake-up call, I think, to many New Yorkers that we really need to be paying more attention to our municipal elections. I think the fact for half of New York, the fact that Andrew Cuomo is polling so well without really doing any work. He really thought he was just going to slide into this on name recognition, and he was almost right. But now Zoran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist of America candidate that we've been talking about a lot, he a couple months ago was 40 points behind Cuomo. Now, in the latest polls, is only 2 points behind Cuomo. So Cuomo needs to wake up. I mean, I don't want him to wake up. I don't want him to win. Neither of these are my favorite candidate. That being said, I just think it's a wake-up call in general that, if you want to win an election, you have to go out and talk to the public. And Andrew Cuomo for so long was not showing up at any of these mayoral forums. In fact, was sometimes saying that he would do something and then, canceling last minute because he was scared of protesters. And again, he was kind of doing that, what I call it the Beyonce approach. It's nothing negative against Beyonce. It's just her approach is like, she stopped basically doing kind of any interviews or press to create an allure around her. And I think that works really well for entertainers. I think that we know too much about a lot of artists, and we don't need to because their art can speak for itself. And, for me, for example, as a huge fan of Alanis Morissette's art, the more I learn about her as a person, it actually kind of ruins her music a little bit for me. I don't think there's anything wrong with her. It's just like I don't really want to know all the human flaws of an artist whose music has gotten me through a lot. I don't want to see those flaws presented in a non-artistic way, if that makes sense. And that is not a reflection on her. It's, she's a human being. So obviously, this is true. But I just think the way she packages her flaws in her music is so beautiful. And so I kind of don't need to see it in this uncensored way. It ruins the mystique of the music for me. Anyway, all this to say, I feel the same way about Andrew Cuomo's approach to politics. That being said, you cannot create a mystique when you are running for public office. We need to know everything about you. This is when you're running for public office, like I've said before, they know every cent I spent in 2024. It is public record. Every little every copy I made at Kinko's FedEx is public knowledge. Every person who donated to my campaign is public knowledge. There are no secrets. I mean, there's lots of secrets in politics, but like there are not supposed to be secrets, right? We're not supposed to be creating a mystique around us. It's not supposed to be mysterious. You're supposed to know who we are and how we feel when we're running for public office. And Andrew Cuomo knows who he is. And so he wants us to not know who he is because he knows my theory is Andrew Cuomo knows he's a bad guy. And so he's like, less is more with me. Even he knows that about himself. And I think it's a tactic that had there not been this young voter enthusiasm around Zoran Mamdani, it could have worked. Because as a lot of the other articles are stating, that they're saying a lot of the other candidates are unimpressive. I actually don't find all the other candidates to be unimpressive. I think if Adrienne Adams had gotten in the race earlier, that she could have done a lot better. She's, made a lot of big strides in the time that she's been in. But I think that's a decision that should have been made a long time ago, especially if she really wanted the job. To me, it's like, do you want the job or do you just not want Cuomo to have the job? Because you need to actually want the job yourself to have the energy to govern this city for 4 years and if you're doing a good job, hopefully 8 years. And so even though Zoran is not my favorite candidate, what I do thank him for is getting young voters really energized about this election. Improving voter turnout, getting eyes on it, showing the other candidates that they can't phone it in, and that when someone has energy and enthusiasm about winning this election, it really starts to show. Putting a lot of work into modern media and social media appearances, and he finally did the Breakfast Club today. I know his team was like really trying to get on the Breakfast Club for a long time, and they finally got on it today. So I really commend him for that. I think those are all good moves, even though he's not my favorite candidate. I think those are all good moves. What I don't think is a good move is how much of this, and I knew this was going to happen. This is a conversation I had personally with my team so many times because I knew the mayoral election was going to devolve into just a big conversation about Israel and Palestine, which is not, first of all, it's not what the mayor does. Again, basically the mayor's stance on Israel-Palestine should stop at hate crimes and protesting because that's the power, their power stops there. And so the conversation should stop there. In the first mayoral debate, they're asking them about their stance on Israel. I'm actually so angry that they asked that question because it's like I don't need to know, and now that I do, I can't unknow that. I just don't need. That's not information we need to know about a mayoral candidate. And it's a way. It's just like it's a way for the Democratic Party to eat itself from the inside. It was so stupid. It's not important. It's not important in the mayoral race. It's important in general. And quite frankly, it's almost like if someone was privately anti-Semitic, but it didn't talk about it openly, I would almost be like that. You can be anti-Semitic in your own time as long as it's we're not talking about it on a large level. That's kind of how I feel about it. It's like if you're going to make the right choices for New York, if you're going to help with the housing crisis, if you're going to help with the mental health crisis, if you are going to, stop the rate of recidivism in New York, if you're going to handle the problems that we most need handled in this city, I kind of don't really care what your national news views are because they shouldn't really be infiltrating into your municipal policy. The problem is all these people are continuously auditioning for the next job, right? So when you're a stand-up comic, you're telling one joke, but your mind is already on the next joke because you always have to be in your mind one step ahead of the audience. And I feel like that's what politicians are doing. They're vying for one spot, but their mind's already on the next spot. And you can see it in these debates because there is no other reason why we are talking about these big national issues. Yes, you're going to have to deal with Donald Trump, but it's around, ICE coming into the city. You're just you don't need to have these big stances on on Gaza and on Israel, and it's pissing me off, and it's creating a real problem in the city where now the same exact thing that happened with the presidential election is going to happen, but where it's just, you're voting based on what the elected official stance on Israel-Palestine is, but which is extremely problematic when it's coming, when it's for municipal politics, because there are real challenges and issues that we need to address right now in this city. Yes, people are dying in Gaza, and that's a huge problem, and people absolutely need to deal with it. The UN needs to deal with it. Someone needs to shake Benjamin Netanyahu. That's not the mayor of New York City. So now we're talking about these other people who are dying, but there are people dying right here in our city, and that is the responsibility of the mayor and the mayoral candidates. That should be their main concern. And so it's really frustrating me that this is now devolved into pro-Israel people voting for Cuomo, pro-Palestine people voting for Zoran Mamdani, when this is not at all the issue that is facing the city. And I am so angry about it. And I knew this was going to happen. And I had so many strategic meetings with my team to be like, how do we make sure this doesn't take over the conversation? Because this is not the main issue facing New York City. And it's distracting people from the issues that are facing New York City. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm really angry about that this week. It's dividing our city, and it doesn't need to be. And that's not me saying don't care about that issue or don't protest about that issue. Care about that issue and protest, but not when you're running for mayor. You can do it in your own free time, but once you become a mayoral candidate, like you are serving the people and basically showing how you are going to serve the people. And it's just like, and I don't even blame either of those candidates, because it's, moderators asking them and, us as constituents asking them, but it's like, we really want to focus on what are you going to do for the city you are actually in charge of governing, and within the power that you have, instead of just talking about these hot button issues, these clickable issues, these in vogue issues. It's really frustrating, and I do think that there is the reason that these issues get talked about is, number one, it gets clicks, and then number two, because all these people are auditioning for bigger roles. I mean, Andrew Cuomo quite openly is auditioning for something bigger. You don't go from governor to mayor. It's like he's just doing this because he, had to step down from governor, and he thought this would be a walk in the park to win this mayoral race. And then, Zoran, it makes me question his intentions. And again, he's like someone I've had positive experiences with in person. I love the energy he's bringing to this election. I love that people are getting so excited about the municipal politics in this city. I think that's really, really great. I love that he's getting young voters energized. I love that so many people are out canvassing for him. I think that's really cool. That part of it is great. But, it does make me think, like, and I'll talk about this more later in the show, but it makes me think, like, why when I looked into kind of like how he came to become a politician, because he's only been a politician for like 3.5 years. He's an assemblyman, and his work in the political space, he was a rapper a couple of years ago. So coming from entertainment, his family is in the entertainment business. His mom's a Hollywood director. His dad is a famous author, activist, and also a professor at Columbia who speaks about, who does Palestinian studies. And Zoran has done a lot of Palestinian activism, and that's kind of his start. So like again, you can have kind of whatever passions and interests you want, activism wise, like that's totally fine. But it just does make me question. It's like, okay, so if your whole like life up to this, not that long ago has really been devoted to freeing Palestine, why then is this next move and so soon into politics running for another like municipal level job? To me, it seems like if your main political goal is freeing Palestine, which is fine, that's your choice, then you should be running for some kind of a national position, congressperson, et cetera. And so then it makes me go, huh? I mean, obviously he, lived in New York City since he was 7 years old, so it would make sense if he's running for municipal positions, it would be here. But like, well, then why, if freeing Palestine is your main political goal, has been on record and in your activism, is then your next move to run for mayor for the place which has the largest Jewish population after Israel? Right? There's something that doesn't sit well with me about that. And there's a ton of, there's like a ton of Jewish activists and Jewish influencers who are like, calling him, he's a terrorist and all that stuff. I don't think he's a terrorist. Okay. But it's just me saying, just look in, like, just ask questions and why is that the move? I don't know. And now it's just become kind of like the young, cool thing. Like, in the East Village, Lower East Side, I live right on the cusp. So in the East Village and Lower East Side where I live, just, there's a lot of like, street art and graffiti spray, like Zoran for mayor, which again, great. I love the energy, but like, are you really informed about these candidates, or is you just like, no, like this is the cool progressive candidate to like, and this is who AOC endorsed, so that's who I'm going to go for? I didn't really plan on talking about this all at the top of the show. I was going to put it further down because I know like a lot of people aren't from New York, but it's just been like kind of weighing heavily on me because I really like am taking it very seriously who I'm ranking for my 5 choices. And like I said, I wasn't going to endorse any of the candidates. I don't feel strongly enough about any of the specific, individual candidates. But I just like, I want to make the move that will not get Cuomo elected, which would be voting for Zoran. But I just don't feel comfortable voting for him. I gotta say, at this point, with the research that I've been doing, and I don't know. So. Yeah, it's and I mean, not to mention, and everyone's, and then the whole conversation about him just being rich, like a rich kid. That's my own bias, though. You guys know that I have a bias against rich kids, so that would include both Andrew Cuomo and Zoran. Even though in the mayoral debate he was like, I only pay $2,300 a year a month for my apartment. Okay, dig a little deeper, guys. Very rich. Let's see. Okay. I was like asking a lot of questions online. I have so much research that I did today. I'm just trying to get it all pieced together. But that's where I'm at right now. Reading just tons of articles about that. And again, like the Free Press has been doing like a lot of like hit pieces against him, and I don't necessarily like. I think that some of those are a bit fear mongering, and again, just like dividing the city in a way that we don't need to. And it's just kind of honestly been weighing heavy on my heart because the main reason is because I think it's really distracting us from all the help that New York City really needs. Again, 100,000 plus people without homes and a mental health crisis where there's laws that need to be changed so that people aren't constantly cycling in and out of mental health institutions, and the same people committing crimes over and over again, and the ICE infiltrating, our sanctuary city, and then just so many things that we really actually need to be paying attention to. And now we're paying attention to something that the mayor is not even going to do. All right. So that's that. This is also, I was going to call this Donald Trump's big birthday episode, his big birthday, coming up on Saturday, that the parade that he's investing, $45 million of taxpayer money on. Absolutely crazy. He's a Gemini. No surprise there. Cuckoo. Sorry to my Geminis out there, but you guys know that you're, questionable zodiac sign. If you're a Gemini watching, hopefully you have a good moon and rising. But Yeah. So if you want to protest against Donald Trump, definitely make sure to check out No Kings. There will be protests happening all over the country, and I will certainly be at the one in New York. It's No Kings Day, nokings.org to find a protest near you. I'll also be working hard to get the word out about the voluntary intoxication exclusion loophole in New York, and, perhaps there is one in your state. I just saw that they closed the same loophole in Texas. So Texas is now ahead of New York, which is never a good thing. But make sure through Tuesday you're doing this call to action that I said last week. All you have to do is take 3 minutes. You're going to call Speaker Carl Hastie. And if you're not, this is a New York State issue, but any American can call this and help us to do this, get this to vote to the floor in New York, and because then I think other states will follow suit. So it doesn't matter. You don't have to say that you're a New York voter. Just say that you want this bill passed. They don't check where the phone number is. Again, if you call during business hours, you'll just be leaving a message with someone who works at his office, and you can call right now and just leave a message on the voicemail. Either way, it's fine. You're calling Speaker Hastie. It's pronounced Hasty, but it's spelled Heastie. And you're going to talk about the voluntary intoxication exclusion. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is something I've been talking about for a couple of weeks. I've been working with the Cura Collective to undo this terrible legal loophole that hurts survivors of sexual assault. And it's basically that under New York law, drunk people can't technically be raped. So if the night of your rape, you voluntarily consume alcohol or smoke pot, your rapist cannot be prosecuted as a rapist. That's the law right now. And so what we want to do is we want to pass Assembly Bill A101. It fixes this loophole. So you can call Speaker Hastie, and the number is 518-455-3791, and also give a call to 518-455-4032. Literally takes 3 minutes. Do it every day. Do it while you're brushing your teeth. I did a press conference regarding this. I went to a morning show at Zeem Studios yesterday and talked about this, talked about it on Guys We Fucked. This is something that we, the people, really have power over. Speaker Hastie has actually said that women weren't knocking down his door enough to get this passed. So we really need to put the pressure on. And again, they go on break on Tuesday, the 17th. So just keep calling if you're, at No King's Day, wherever near you, call with a group of people, give the phone number out. It really helps survivors. And again, this is often a domino effect where if one state does it, then it puts more pressure on elected officials in other states. So even if you're not a New Yorker, this still could help you and help American legislature in general. So that's cool. My enemy of the state, of course, this week is still Speaker Carl Hastie. Just, he's just basically single-handedly stopped this bill from passing. It's been 6 years on the table. Absolutely crazy it's taken this long. I did get private information that, the speaker has finally come to the table talking with some district attorneys, but he has still not added it to his list of things that they're voting on in the assembly. So we need to continue putting the pressure on, but the pressure is working. And again, as I've been talking, there's a lot of things that I do think are not helpful that they tell the public to do calls to action. But I do think voting and making these calls to your elected officials actually do work. So please continue doing that. All right, next up for the Patreon, thank you so much to all my patrons. Love you guys. If you want to join the Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutaCountry. All Hail our dictator, Hannah Pendergrass. So amazing. Thank you for your months and months of support to keep this show going and to fund independent journalism. Shout out to my capitalist pigs and welcome our new cutie, Andy Yaworski. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. Again, if you want to email me about anything, it's without, I mean, anything related to this show, not anything. It's without a country podcast at gmail.com. Got some really great emails. Right now I'm especially interested in any municipal level drama or just important things that are happening in your state or, municipal issues in your country. If, you please feel free to share that with me as well. If there's anything that we can do as a group, any small calls to action that local wackos can help out with, that's the kind of stuff that I'd love to share here on this platform. And as always, if you, decide to run for public office and actually have a legitimate campaign doing, like, I'm not going to just start promoting you if you go, I'm thinking about running for something. But if you contact me and you have a real campaign going, I would love to help highlight that here on the show. Let's get into the Wacko mailbag now. This is from Wacko Megan. She wrote to me about Charlotte municipal drama. And I'm so excited to read this. Hey, Corinne, you asked for some local municipal chaos, and here it is. Last week during the Mecklenburg County Commission meeting in Charlotte, North Carolina, the board passed a budget that included $118 million in secretive funding tied to a new training facility involving ICE and DHS. The facility is planned for land connected to our local community college, and the public has been kept in the dark throughout this process. I spoke during the Gun Violence Awareness Proclamation to call out the funding and share what it feels like to teach in a system that keeps asking for more while diverting resources to a facility no one asked for. I talked about how no amount of tactical training can protect a classroom of children from a system that refuses to address root causes. The speaker after me also mentioned the facility and was cut off mid-comment for being disruptive. During that disruption, someone in the balcony dropped something that I later found out was 8 crickets. The meeting was paused for nearly 10 minutes while staff vacuumed, then resumed. Of course, I stopped right there in the email and got so upset that they vacuumed the living crickets. I understand you need to get them out, but it's 8 crickets. Maybe try to catch, I don't know. Because then I just was oh my God, there's animal abuse going on. I can't. You're talking to the person who spent, several hours trying to resuscitate a dragonfly a couple weeks ago that was drowning in a lake. So this is just that broke my heart. I'm really into bugs lately. I follow this girl on Instagram. Oh my God, what is she? She's like a bug girl, and I'm very into this. And I'm kind of oh God, I knew you could be a horse girl. I didn't really know you could be a bug girl, but I'm kind of really into being a bug girl now. Her Instagram is Big Bug Girl 13. If you want to follow her, her name is Bella. She's a cutie. I think she just lost her praying mantis, Martini, I'm pretty sure. So rest in peace, Martini, and go follow her. She's very interesting. Especially if maybe you don't have I know a lot of people don't have a great relationship with bugs. I mean, I live in New York City. I don't have a great relationship with cockroaches, but they're there. And, that is the only bug that I still don't care about killing. But we're working. The empathy keeps going on and on. In Costa Rica, I really took a liking to ants. So you never know. Maybe one day soon I'm gonna have empathy for cockroach. I do have empathy for them, but they're just so gosh darn powerful. They survive everything. So I just don't feel like they need to be saved. But they're still living creatures. I just wish they didn't come in my house. Then I wouldn't have to kill them. All right. So going back to this Charlotte thing, I want to read the article that she submitted about what happened with the crickets released during the protest. This is from WSOCTV.com. Crickets released in protest disrupt Mecklenburg County Commission meeting. The Mecklenburg County Commission meeting was disrupted by protesters of the Central Piedmont Community College Law Enforcement Training Center Tuesday night. Allegedly, someone released crickets inside the chamber. The meeting then had to pause while a member of the cleaning crew came in to vacuum them up. Oh, wait, that's all that article said. There's a second article. That's crazy that's all that article said. It says the crickets are really the highlight there. Okay, so amid a community member speaking about gun violence concerns in Charlotte, a murmur started in the chambers, prompting a halt to the meeting for several minutes because someone had released crickets inside. Mecklenburg Board of Commissioners halted the meeting and said on the microphone, "We're going to wait until we can maintain order. It's shameful. You can leave. Thank you very much. We appreciate it." After several protesters were removed, the meeting got back to the agenda. About 30 minutes later, crickets were still hopping around, so commissioners had to take a 10-minute recess for environmental services staff to come in and vacuum up the insects. Okay, well, if it's environmental services, I'm like looking at the vacuums. I'm like, is this some kind of like bug-friendly vacuum? It doesn't look like it. Gerald said the disturbance frightened a child who ran out of the room crying because of the bugs and caused a safety concern. Okay. We had a young lady who was there, a child who was there to celebrate her mom on such a great night, who left our chambers crying with her grandmother, who was terrified. When you think about a disruption and what potentially could take place, people could be trampled. Okay, I mean, how many people were there? I don't think anyone's being trampled because I'm guessing not that many people were there. People could have an accident going up or down those steps. They don't know what's coming at them. Law enforcement is put in a compromised situation because they don't know where items are coming from. That's a lot. If a community member wants to speak to the Mecklenburg Board of County Commissioners, I mean, yeah, they're acting like the Mecklenburg Board of County Commissioners has the same capacity as an Ariana Grande concert where someone's getting trampled. I'm looking at the photos. No one's getting trampled. It looks like a mildly filled auditorium, and a small auditorium at that. Anyone can sign up, and you can sign up the day of, and you get 3 minutes to speak. We want to understand where our community stands, what our community is thinking, and what they value. We need folks to come in with the intent to effectively communicate. Well, the problem here is I think when people effectively communicate with their mouths, they don't get press coverage, but when they drop crickets, they do. So it's like, what lesson are we teaching people? WBTV reached out to the community members. We were told release the crickets to ask why they decided to do so in the middle of the meeting, but at the time of publication had not heard back. The commissioners said they were familiar with the protesters. They were part of a group who has come to speak to the board in the past and continue to speak to the board. And, speaking to the board is fine. It's what we expect. It's what we want. Well, to me, what this seems like in veiled political nonsense talk is that this is a group who has a specific thing they want done, and they've come to speak to you many times, and you have done jack shit about it, so then they brought crickets, and now we're all talking about it. So it seems like, even though I do not agree with hurting living creatures, to make your point, that a point was made. But that I just love when they speak to us like children. But that level of disruption is just not going to be tolerated. It's like, well, you're being corrupt. That's also disruption, and we've been tolerating that. So now we're fighting back, and sometimes it's with crickets. I think whatever their message is, it was lost last night. Whatever credibility they may have had, it was lost last night, and it's up to them to regain it. So now they're just using this as a way to not do the thing that they weren't going to do anyway, and they're making it like these people are the bad people. They need to regain the trust of everyone in this community. It's so funny. It's so funny to go back and to our writer's email and know what they're building a facility for ICE. Next to a community college that the public has no knowledge of. So to have the audacity to say that for dropping 8 crickets, they need to regain the trust of everyone in the community when they've been building an ICE facility without the knowledge of the community is fucking hilarious and couldn't be more politics. Like when you look up politics in the dictionary, you're gonna see that, person who builds ICE facility tries to make 8 cricket dropper the villain. That's politics for you in a nutshell. And that is also why I am so excited about municipal politics, and I want you guys to get excited about it too. Because again, this is where the corruption begins to fester. And this is the level where we have access to these politicians and we can stop them before they get to a higher level. Once it gets to a national level, so much harder to stop these people. They know they have so many connections and they have so much money by that time, it is extremely hard to stop them. At this level, you can stop them before they get out of hand. And that's exciting, right? Gerald said the protesters put the board in a position he said cannot happen again. People that are doing the work of the community, whether it's Charlotte, Mecklenburg schools, whether it's the city or whether it's the county who sit behind here, who work in this building, who just want to do good for the people. And people come in and do things that put lives in jeopardy and people at risk. Let's read that again. They dropped 8 crickets. That put lives in jeopardy and people at risk. Wait, let me Google. Can you die from a cricket? For the most part, crickets aren't dangerous to humans in the same way we think of other insects as being dangerous to humans. They don't have any venom or poison that can cause neurological damage or numbing like scorpions. And while they do have mouths that can chew and bite, they generally don't bite people. Okay. So, wait. List of fatalities due to cricket the insect. I have to write the insect because I'm getting fatalities that are associated with cricket the game. Yeah, it doesn't even like come up. I mean, there's a Daily Mail article from May that says chaos as biblical plague of cannibal crickets invades U.S. state, creating death trap conditions. But that's a specific type of crickets that are called, and I didn't name them, Mormon crickets. Mormon crickets, and this is a cutie's corner if ever there were one, Mormon crickets are a cannibalistic insect that have returned in massive swarms. But that's really kind of just going on in Montana, Oregon, Utah, Idaho, and Nevada. So not a problem in Charlotte, North Carolina, where this story takes place. Anyway, I knew I was right. Back to the story. Again, this is how they love when shit like this happens. They love when a protester comes and drops 8 crickets because then they just have an excuse to not do anything that the community wants them to do. And then also to create a lot of diversion. Where they talk about for someone to say that by dropping 8 crickets into a meeting, you put lives in jeopardy and people at risk is so fucking bananas. I'm going to do everything I can to see that it doesn't happen in the future. Okay, why don't you just do what the public elected you to do? Because it doesn't seem like you're doing a lot of that. And Megan says, for more background and updates around this, if you're in Charlotte or if you're just interested in the story, you can check out the Instagrams at Stop Cop City CLT and at Cop City Facts on Instagram. So thank you so much for writing. I love it. I knew these municipal stories were going to be juicy as hell. And then this next email is from Wacko Christie, and she writes, "Hi, Corinne. I'm a new Wacko listening for 6 months. I listen to Guys We Fucked and Without a Country often, including going back through old episodes. I found you through your adventures at the MAGA rally when Christina and I were on the Daily Show election special with Jordan Klepper. Shout out to Jordan Klepper, and have been a fan ever since. Finding your podcast at a time where politics means so much more than ever was helpful. I have learned a lot from your mayoral journey. I am trying to read my news from varied sources, including paid subscriptions. I want to thank you. Because of you, I attended a congressman's town hall and even spoke my targeted question. My talk was against ICE and these inhumane detainments and deportations. Love to see it. Absolutely love to see it. This doesn't have to be your whole life. If you just even do a little, if we all just did a little bit, I certainly don't expect you all to run for mayor. Leave that to a crazy bitch like me, right? Or if you want to, if you want to do it, do it. But I don't, I certainly do not expect that level, of commitment. But all these little things, if we all start doing these little things, like it just will make such a big difference. I found that I learned so much. This is a well-known Democrat, yet I left knowing he will never get my vote because he does not represent what I believe in. I now look up voting records and don't vote off just colors, meaning like just vote blue or just vote red. Love that. Love that. You have been wanting people to write you about local politics. I'm from New Jersey and familiar with your hometown. My hometown, for those who don't know, is Union, New Jersey. Union Township, not to be confused with Union City. I am from Union Township in Union County, representing 908. What's up? New Jersey is at a critical time in politics with the governor election. We are moving red and rightward quite fast, and it is really alarming. I am constantly disgusted by the comment section of the New Jersey Instagrams I follow. A lot of MAGA people in there, and we need to stop that because that is not what my home state is about. I'd love for you to speak up more about that election. The problem is because I am so now, I've been a New Yorker for so long, I just don't know politics in New Jersey the way I used to, and like my brain only has so much room for politics. So it's basically I have to concentrate on municipal politics in my state, which is New York, and then in the country and internationally. I do keep up with it a little bit, through my mother, obviously, who still votes in New Jersey. Mikey Sherrill, I know, just won the governor, the Democratic primary for governor in New Jersey, which is cool. I think that's probably the best choice. Mikey Sherrill's a woman. Just if the name is confusing. And then fucking, I don't know, Robert Pizza Pie Caprese Salad is the person who won the Republican primary. His name's like Robert Citarelli or something. I don't know. I just saw, this, you shouldn't make decisions this way, but listen, I'm from New Jersey and I saw a picture of this guy, Robert Pizza Pie Caprese Salad. And I said, absolutely not. I don't recommend this, but sometimes you can just look at a picture of a politician and be like, they use the N-word casually. And like, again, I don't want to put that on Robert Pizza Pie Caprese Salad, but I just kind of got, this is just a person I know, He probably doesn't even use the N-word. He probably uses actually a racial slur that is like, so old school. Like there are Italians that I used to meet in New Jersey that would use, I remember one time coming home and reporting back what an old Italian man, or at that time maybe a middle-aged Italian man, who was old to me because I was like 12. I knew he had said something racist, but I didn't quite understand it because he was using such old school terminology. But I brought it back to my mother because I said, this doesn't sound right. And I said, I got to tell Di-Fi about this. And she just looked at me like it was a racial slur. I was right. But she goes, that racial slur is like so old. Like, she's like, I don't even know. Like, I can't even believe people are still using that. So that's what we're dealing with. Like, that was like an experience I had in a shore town. Like, I went down the shore with my friend and I just heard a lot of stuff that I was like, knew was bad. And not my friend saying it, but just I heard other adults talking, and I was like, I've always been an investigative journalist before I was an investigative journalist. And I was just like, taking notes, report. And I said, I will report this back to a trusted adult. And then I told my mother, and then she informed me. And then you know what? The more you know. And then next time I was like, next time I hear that, I will know it's a racial slur, and I can say, not on my watch. Anyway, that's what New Jersey is right now. It's so many people I went to high school with are like big MAGA heads, and I go, well, no wonder I felt like an outcast in this school. I felt like an outcast, and it was a good thing, and I knew it was a good thing at the time, and I didn't know why, and now I know. Anyway, so she goes on to say, but I also wanted to share some juicy political scandal on a more local level, not my town, but within my county. There is a councilman who is a Gambino hitman. I mean, Jersey, with confirmed kills under his belt representing the town. We have a big problem with mafia people, like they like own like the Jersey Shore, basically. You probably read about how New Jersey is one of the only states that has like beaches that you need to pay to get on. And it's because the mafia owns them. I will say they're very nice because of it. Like they're very like well taken care of because of the mafia, but a problem nonetheless. Apparently, the mayor is acting very shady. The town now has 4 dispensaries, which is mainly shocking because it is only a little over 1 square mile. This has been spoken about in the local news, and I will share the articles I find most informative. And then she sends me the article. A killer turned councilman, and this is from NewJersey.com, which if you're interested in New Jersey is like a really good thing to follow. They have a very interesting Instagram too. You'll see me commenting. I always pop into the NewJersey.com Instagram to be like, we're not all fucking psycho racists. A killer turned councilman, masked men, and lots of weed. Welcome to Potttown, New Jersey. Oh my God. A confessed killer is now a community leader. 4 council members have abruptly resigned since February, and the mayor claims a mysterious incident precipitated that exodus from the Englishtown Borough Council and led to his nomination of John Elite, the former mob hitman, as a replacement. And Elite is spelled Alite, but he refuses to talk about it. There was a lot to unpack here, said Mark Pfeiffer, a senior policy fellow and assistant director of the Blaustein Local Government Center at Rutgers University. But there's more. Like the former police chief facing criminal charges, including aiding another person in shoplifting, and 4 cannabis dispensaries sitting within 4 blocks of each other on Englishtown's main street, leading some to rechristen the town. They're calling us Potttown, said Cindy Robilotti, a former council member, and I think that's disgusting. That's what Cindy Robilotti would say. A year ago, Englishtown was a quaint donut hole municipality of 2,300 encircled by Manalapan. But over the past few months, a series of controversies bordering on the absurd has embroiled the Monmouth County Borough. Oh, I got to call my uncle. He lives in Manalapan. I got to get the drama from my uncle. We've never had, in all the years I've been on council, never had 4 members resign, said Robilotti, who served on the 6-person council for 15 years before she chose not to run for re-election a couple years ago. Under the circumstances, an overabundance of legal weed might seem like the least of its problems. Yet to many, those proliferating cannabis dispensaries and the future of a beloved lake are the real concerns. Like, guys, like I am telling you, you might think I'm crazy. You might think municipal politics aren't important, or once you get in, it's like a soap opera. Like you think, oh, soap operas are corny. I don't need to be a part of it. Once you're hooked, you're hooked. For me, municipal politics is like this soap opera Passions that my friend Vicky, shout out Vicky DeVille, got me into in high school. I was like, what are you, 55? Say, what are you, a 55-year-old housewife? You're home after high school every day watching Passions. I watched 1 episode, guys. I was hooked. There was a puppet on it. There was like a woman who had like this ventriloquist puppet who was wreaking havoc on the town. I couldn't stop. That's how I feel about municipal politics. I'm telling you, you're going to be so invested once you get in because there is drama galore. Fuck Real Housewives. Get into your local politics. So yet to many, those proliferating cannabis dispensaries and the future of a beloved lake are the real concerns, not the reshuffling of the council or the criminal charges involving the former chief or their new councilman's body count. For the record, 6 homicides and 30 to 40 shootings he has estimated in published reports. I can't think of any other instance where somebody who was convicted of federal, our favorite word, racketeering, is serving in public office, said Chris Gramaccioni. These names are just so New Jersey, who was a federal prosecutor and the Monmouth County prosecutor before going into private practice. Welcome to Englishtown. Like they're even writing it like it's a soap opera. Welcome to Englishtown, where things get crazy. The turmoil began to spill into public view in February. William Lewis and Kyle Juuziak, who had just won his council seat last November and served little more than a month, resigned from the municipal body effective February 17th. Then Megan Lewis, William Lewis's wife, and Bill Sabin resigned effective March 12th. There's so much incestuousness too in municipal politics. Why did 4 council members step down in quick succession? It depends on who you ask. In his resignation letter, Sabin said the council more closely resembles an autocracy. My wife and I feel that we have done all we could do to help our town over the last 4 years. And while the recent decisions by the mayor seem to have given a black eye to our great little town, we're looking forward to moving on from all the drama, he told New Jersey Advance Media. He declined further comment. Mayor Daniel Francisco says he asked 3 of the council members, Jeruziak and Megan and William Lewis, to step down after an incident in which they, quote, did something to me. He told New Jersey Advance Media, and then I requested them to resign, and they complied. Francisco declined to elaborate on what they allegedly did. This is so funny. But there was never any incident, according to Megan Lewis, and he never once asked me to resign, she told New Jersey Advance Media in her first interview since her resignation. Instead, the mayor called for her resignation in his email to her husband and Jeruziak without directly asking her for it, she said. He's never once spoken to me saying that he had an issue with me, she said. Megan Lewis said she didn't quit because of his request. She stepped down because of the mayor's behavior, like making last-minute changes to the meeting agenda and asking the council to vote on draining Lake Weemaconk without giving it enough time to consider the options. This is municipal politics, draining a lake. That's what you're concentrating on. The lake has a dam classified as a significant hazard by the state and requires a solution, according to an engineering firm that gave a presentation last November. He wanted to do away with the lake and then wanted us all to vote on it without even once bringing it to the attention of the town, she said. So I fought to have a letter sent out to town, which caused a meeting where there was probably about 200 people there, so he wasn't happy about it. So that's an example of an elected official actually doing her job, actually saying, like, we have to stop making these decisions for the town without the people in the town knowing. She alerts the town. People do show up because people do want to be involved in these decisions. And then, the mayor's pissed. But the final straw for her came during a February executive session. An official closed-door meeting often involving sensitive matters. 2 men barged in with masks on and caused this whole big ruckus, she said. It was a very uncomfortable situation. The men later filmed the council meeting, calling themselves First Amendment, quote, auditors. Councilman Alexei Rek, who was at the February meeting, said the men weren't aware they were interrupting the council's executive session until officials told them and they left. It's not that they barged in, he said. They walked in not knowing. Megan Lewis said she didn't feel safe once the disruption happened. The mother of 5 believed the mayor knew the men and encouraged the disturbance because he previously filmed a video with them on the boardwalk, she said. This article is so delightfully New Jersey, I can't even control myself. After the meeting, the men tried to follow the council out of the building. And when asked, Francisco offered up the council member's name like it was no big deal, Megan Lewis said. He wasn't there to protect us in any way, she said. It looked like he just wanted the drama. In her resignation letter, Megan Lewis said, I fear for my own well-being and that of my children, which honestly, when the mafia is involved, I would agree with her. According to the Asbury Park Press, Francisco, who easily won the Republican mayoral primary and faced no opponent in the general election in November 2023, and that's what happens so often in these municipal elections. We have people facing no opponents. That should not be happening. Called the allegation ludicrous. William Lewis and Jeruziak did not respond to requests for comment. Sabin's wife, Kim Sabin, also resigned as chairperson of the Planning Zoning Board. Again, so many people were both husband and wife are involved politically. I don't love that. I mean, obviously, you could meet in politics, whatever. But, it gets very incestuous. Which other and even this article points out which other married couples also serve on. Like, I don't think married couples should really be allowed to serve on the same board. I think that's a conflict of interest, quite frankly. Let's see. Oh my God, I'm getting a mayoral ad on this. So interesting. Who is this? What's this ad for? I think it's like an what is this? A Zoran Lander Stringer ad? What the hell is this? Okay, I don't know what that was. It was some ad where they were all together. Let's see. While Englishtown's situation is admittedly unusual, plenty of towns have weathered dysfunction. Rutgers Pfeiffer pointed out, things happen, he said. There's always been oddball situations that happen in local governments, but lately Englishtown has faced more than its share. To some, all the drama, the council, the mayor, the infighting is just theatrics among former friends, Francisco Sabin and the Lewises. They've all gone to school together. They've all known each other. They all grew up in this town, said John Soares, an Englishtown local who co-founded the Butted Up dispensary last year. It's like classroom bickering, he said, with a healthy dose of trolling, it would seem. Francisco, serving in his capacity as the committee chair for Englishtown for the Monmouth County Republicans, gave the council 4 names to replace the members who quit. One of them was his wife. Francisco, a former executive director of Project Veritas, the conservative group known for its hidden camera stings, which I'm guessing a lot of people listening are familiar with, admitted he nominated her to troll some remaining council members for not speaking to him during the nomination process, which is good and adult in the way government should be run. I knew for a fact they weren't going to pick my wife, he said. But one person they did pick, Elite, the former mob associate turned government witness. Elite has admitted in court that he aided the Gambino crime family in multiple murders and the sale of drugs. He made $1 million a year trafficking narcotics for the mob over a 10-year period in the 1980s and 90s. He testified in 2009. He went as far as to declare he, quote, wasn't a good guy. He had met John Gotti Sr., the Gambino mob boss notoriously known as the Teflon Don, and was soon involved in the family's illicit activities, according to a 2019 GQ profile. He soon became John Gotti Jr.'s right-hand man, the profile said. Elite didn't respond for a request for comment from New Jersey Advance Media. But in 2003, he was on the run, fleeing from an impending indictment. He was arrested in Brazil on murder and racketeering charges until an Interpol warrant before being extradited to the U.S. in 2006, according to the GQ story. Elite heard Junior Gotti was working as an informant and several others had already flipped, the profile said. So he made a deal with prosecutors. In early 2008, he pleaded guilty to federal racketeering charges and admitted to 2 murders. He also testified against members of the Gambino family in exchange for a lighter sentence, according to GQ. In 2011, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison, but was released in 2012. Elite, now 62, became a motivational speaker and podcaster, you guessed it. He shared his story and opinions and lent his expertise on video game assassinations. But after his 30-year-old daughter died of a fentanyl overdose 3 years ago, he decided he, quote, wanted to make a difference, leading him to politics and Englishtown's council. I'm here to redeem my whole life, Elite told the New York Post last month. What could top a council in open warfare with the mayor, mass resignations, and a former mobster chosen as a replacement? How about an Englishtown leader facing criminal charges, a whistleblower lawsuit, and accusations of impropriety? In 2023, Gretchen McCarthy, the former municipal clerk, sued the borough and former police chief Peter Cook Jr., alleging wrongful termination for whistleblowing activities during her tenure. She's asking for compensatory damages of at least $250,000. I got it out, as well as damages for lost wages and benefits, back pay, front pay, or reinstatement, humiliation, and mental and emotional distress. In her lawsuit, she alleged Cook failed to respond to OPRA requests in a timely manner, asked her to provide receipts for funds she didn't receive, and tried to buy a police vehicle without proper authorization. He also failed to register borough motor vehicles with the state, she alleged. In retaliation for filing whistleblowing complaints, Cook required McCarthy to fill out a highly invasive and inappropriate background check, the lawsuit said. McCarthy was forced to divulge her height, weight, race, ethnicity, sex at birth, and current sex, according to the lawsuit. She was also required to report any tattoos or scars and any cars she owned, the suit claimed. There's more. McCarthy was also told to provide signed authorizations for the release of banking records, healthcare records, credit agency reporting information, and all government agency records, according to the lawsuit. McCarthy was very alarmed at the request and reached out to the board attorney at the time, who initially didn't reply. She claimed in the lawsuit, but she signed off on the background check and had her fingerprints taken. However, she drew the line at completing a related questionnaire because she had objections, according to the lawsuit. She voiced those objections, and months later, she went on medical leave. When she returned to work in January 2023, she was terminated, according to the lawsuit. She was told her refusal to fill out the questionnaire was the reason. Unfortunately, what happened to her is what happens to many whistleblowers, said Ty Hyderali, her attorney. The case is the discovery phase, and the trial is anticipated to start over the next couple of months, he told New Jersey Advance Media. When we filed the lawsuit, Chief Cook was still the chief of police, he said. The fact that he no longer is the chief of police is certainly an interesting issue that we'll be looking into further. An attorney for Cook declined to comment on the lawsuit, citing pending litigation, but Cook has other legal issues. He used a law enforcement database for 4 years to look up information about two people outside the scope of police investigative purposes. The Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office said last November. I mean, what, his exes? And while on administrative leave, because, handcuff me now. And while on administrative leave for an undisclosed purpose, he also helped an unidentified co-conspirator in several instances of shoplifting from a local grocery store, prosecutors said. He was charged with third-degree computer theft and third-degree conspiracy to commit shoplifting, officials said. Cook was placed on unpaid suspension, officials said at the time. He had a pre-indictment conference in early April at Monmouth County Superior Court, but the case remains active according to court records. Somehow, no one in Englishtown seems upset about Elite or the incredibly messy council, not even council members themselves. I don't want to say nobody cared, but we want to know what's our next couple steps rather than what someone did in their previous lifetime. Babe, it's not your previous lifetime. It's like a couple years ago, said Brendan Sharkey, a new councilman who was sworn in earlier this month. Residents seem to agree that a former hitman councilman wasn't a concern. Not at all, said Joanne DeMonte. That wasn't even an issue. Again, exactly what someone named Joanne DeMonte would say. Only one person objected to Elite's position on the council at a March town hall, but the man was from Long Island and had a somewhat personal tie to Elite's former life. He once worked for John Gotti Jr., the New York Post reported. The crowd was not pleased with his presence and promptly booed him out of the room. Guys, I mean, this is a soap opera. This is a documentary. This is a reality TV show. Let's produce this, guys. However, the legal cannabis dispensaries lining Main Street are another matter. Obviously, a concern, Sharkey acknowledged, but noted two of them occupy previously vacant banks. Even a dispensary owner agrees 4 is too many for a tiny town. It's like the East Village, honestly. Someone has the business license for a 5th cannabis dispensary in town, said Soares, one of the other dispensary dispensary owners. I mean, I hope that town is high as fuck. But as of now, it's unclear if all will even remain afloat. I don't think 4 is going to last, to be honest with you, he said. One will fail. I don't think it'll be us, but I think one will fail. Perhaps that's one problem that can get solved in English Town. Guys, that was so good. If that story didn't get you interested in municipal politics, I don't know what can, because that was a work of art. That was a work of art. Thank you so much for sending that to me. And kudos to Brianna Kudish from New Jersey Advanced Media for NewJersey.com for writing that masterpiece. That was beautiful. I loved that. Again, if that can't get you invested in municipal politics, I guess municipal politics aren't for you. That was riveting. I was riveted the whole time. Action-packed. All right. Thanks, Christy, for writing in and sharing that story with me. Oh, beautiful. Real quick, I got a cuties corner for you. I mean, in addition to the crickets. Do you have the little cuties corner, or do you not know how to do those? Mike Harrington's on a daddy-daughter trip this week, so we got AJ in the booth again. Shout out. Thank you so much to our engineer, AJ. We had him a couple months ago. Okay, you don't know where that is. No problem. So this is real quick from bayjournal.com. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically, this is based off something Mike Harrington sent me about how we might be the last generation to see fireflies, which made me so sad because as a kid, like catching fireflies and releasing them safely, we would just get we would go to the craft fair and we would get these little, there it is.
Welcome to Cuties Corner! Yay!
Boop, 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 boop. So, my brother and I, we would get these little, little tiny bug catchers, like safe bug catchers, where you would just place them in safely, and they had room to breathe and space to fly around, from craft fairs, and we would catch the fireflies for an hour or so, like less than an hour, like 10 minutes, and then we would release them, and it's they're beautiful. They just light up the night sky. In New Jersey, and it was so beautiful to watch them. So this kind of saddened me, but it said a study by researchers mostly from Penn State University concludes that habitat loss and pesticides, as well as climate change, do indeed present a threat to at least some species of glowing beetles. Artificial light is another disruptor, researchers say, because fireflies use species-specific flashes to attract mates. The research claims to be the most comprehensive yet on what influences firefly populations in the eastern U.S. Lights are problematic not just for adults flashing and trying to find mates, but also for larvae, said Christina Grosinger, a professor of entomology at Penn State and senior author of the study. Larva. Wait, what's the plural of that? What's the plural of that? How is it said? Do you know, AJ? You're smart. Larvae? Because larva is singular. Is that, yeah, so how is it? Larvae. This is important to me. Larva. No, it's still larva, but it's just spelled different, but it's pronounced the same. Larva. Oh, okay. So it's spelled differently when it's plural, but it's pronounced the same. The more you know. Larvae tend to burrow further underground when there's artificial light, she said, potentially impairing their development. Another important problem is the loss of open ground to buildings, roads, parking lots, and the like. Loss of pervious surfaces is pivotal because fireflies spend up to the first 2 years of their lives as larvae on and under the ground. Only in the last few weeks of their lives do they morph into the adult versions that blink their way to each other to mate on summer evenings, then lay eggs for the next generation. So just a little info on that, how we as humans are once again ruining something delightful about nature. Anyway, let's move into a girl right now. Do you have the drop for that, AJ? No. You found the cuties corner when I thought you might find that. I also can't hear you. You're just making motions to me through the window. All right, you don't have to do it. It's fine. I just got excited because you found the cuties corner one, so I thought you.
Oh, sorry. Which one am I looking for?
Oh, the one that says girl.
All right,
that one might not exist anymore. I feel like Mike said he lost that. It used to be a drag queen saying girl. I feel like we don't even have that drop anymore. I think it disappeared somewhere. Maybe Elon Musk took it. Anyway, this is girl. I'm going to go back and forth between girl and the main story because I do want to get to the main story, which, of course, is going to be Greta Thunberg and her flotilla. First of all, I want to talk about No King's Day again. We talked about it a bit at the top of the show. Obviously, if you want to protest against Donald Trump's birthday parade that's costing, us millions of dollars that we could use on literally anything else, you can find a protest near you at nokings.org. I will be at the one in New York. As will Christina. So this is from Newsweek, and we're hearing from Mary Trump again. Good old Mary Trump. It's Mary Trump predicts U.S. to face yet another test from Donald Trump. Mary Trump predicted President Donald Trump's military parade in Washington, D.C. this weekend will be yet another test for the United States. Responding to her comments, White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly said in a statement to Newsweek, quote, Mary Trump apparently hates America by refusing to celebrate our service members who sacrifice so much to our country. Newsweek reached out to Mary Trump via email for comments. Why it matters. The U.S. Army is celebrating its 250th anniversary with a parade in Washington, D.C. on Saturday, which is also President Donald Trump's 79th birthday. The parade notably comes as the political temperature heats up across the country following large protests over Trump's deportation policy in Los Angeles. Critics have compared the parade to those seen in authoritarian countries like North Korea. What to know? Mary Trump, the president's estranged niece, is among those critics to raise concerns about the military parade, describing it as another test for the country in a video posted to her Substack on Tuesday. On Saturday, I think we're going to face yet another test. On Saturday, Donald will be honoring himself with a military parade, probably because he knows nobody else would do it, she said. Bing, bing, shots fired. Mary Trump predicted there are two possible outcomes of the parade. The first being that there is a turnout so vast that it will overwhelm his petty desire or adulation. Also, there's a possibility, and I think this is what Donald is hoping for, that the show of force will be so chilling that the number of armed soldiers will be so great that people won't show up in sufficient numbers, won't be loud enough, will stay home entirely, or, and I think this is really the end game for Donald Trump, there will be violence stoked by his foot soldiers, she said, which is something that he threatened. I have saved here on Instagram, right here. Let's go to it. I have so many stories saved all over, you guys. All week I'm preparing for this. Thrilling. This is really my whole life revolves around this now. But yeah, it said specifically, this is from Courier Newsroom, Trump says anyone who protests his $45 million birthday parade will face, quote, very heavy force. So that's what prompted me to look further into this. Again, fine, to get the first, fine to find out about a story on Instagram initially, but then just go that extra step further and actually find an article and read about it, not just a headline. The parade is unlikely to work out in Trump's favor, Mary Trump said, adding that she believes Americans who aren't paying close enough attention right now will be absolutely horrified by this North Korea-like spectacle that Donald Trump is putting on in Washington, D.C. this weekend. Kostas this is a Greek name. We're going to get through it. Kostas Panagopoulos, a professor of political science at Northeastern University, told Newsweek there is a rich history of military parades, and it is legitimate to want to celebrate the birthday of the Army. But what makes the parade different in the eyes of many critics is that it happens to also fall on Trump's birthday. It doesn't happen to fall on his birthday. He made it on his birthday. I think many Americans will cringe when watching this parade because it will come across as Trump's personal military parade, he said. And it will be hard to avoid that perception because that appears to be one of the main motivations for hosting this parade in the first place. Some Americans may also question why the administration is spending $45 million on the parade at a time when federal lawmakers are eyeing budget cuts, he said. The Associated Press reported on Wednesday the administration is looking to cancel $9.4 billion in congressional spending, such as public media and global health programs. Concerns about whether protests of the parade could end in violence are very real, Papadopoulos said. There's a real danger for political violence to take place when you have two strongly opposing views like that in the streets at the same time, he said. And listen, I don't like to mix a lot of woo-woo into this show. I don't think it's the place. I think woo-woo can often get you off topic or maybe even sometimes leads you in the wrong direction. That being said, my favorite astrologer, shout out Eliza Kelly. I like two. I like Eliza Kelly and I like Marin Altman, but Eliza Kelly is my favorite. And so Eliza, and there's a couple other ones that I like too, but Eliza Kelly, she said that right now Donald Trump's chart mirrors the way his chart looked during the original assassination attempt. So keep that in mind with this parade coming up. So I just want to go on record as she did say that. Okay. Do with the information what you will. Some protesters are organizing No Kings protests across the country, but not in Washington, D.C. itself, to voice opposition to the parade. Ezra Levin, co-founder of Indivisible, one of those groups, told Newsweek earlier in June the decision not to hold a protest in D.C. was intentional to avoid giving Trump an excuse to crack down on peaceful protests. And if you are going to head out to one of these protests or any protests against ICE or whatever in general, especially with, the Trump administration being crazy, what it is, a little protester 101 from someone who's been protesting for a long time, mommy protester. One of the tips is, we live in an age of cell phones where we don't really know anyone's phone numbers. So when you get arrested, your cell phone is going to be taken away from you. So it is protester 101 tip to have written on your hand in marker or, eyeliner or something that will not sweat off the number of whoever you want your call to be if you get arrested. That's just a safety tip for protesting from me to you. A lot of detainment happening, I think it's just for the best, or like maybe on your hand or like on your inner arm, maybe someplace where it's not going to sweat off and you're not going to like wash it off or wipe it off accidentally. That's a safety tip for an age where we live in, where we don't some people might growing up, I knew like all my best friends' phone numbers, by heart and, all my, relatives. And we just don't know that now. What people are saying, White House, and we don't need quotes about people. All right. What happens next? The parade will be held on Saturday, June 14th with large crowds and significant security measures expected. Meanwhile, the No Kings protests are scheduled for hundreds of communities in every state on the same day. Again, nokings.org if you want to find a protest near you. The one in New York City starts at 2 p.m. at the Fountain in Bryant Park. If you want to join me and Christina there, we will be there. Okay. Let's see. I want to try to keep the show to 2 hours. So I'm going to go into the main story right now, and then we can go back to some other girl stories. But I want to make sure I have plenty of time to talk about this Greta Thunberg story. So Greta Thunberg is someone who, I again love the enthusiasm, but she's someone from who day one felt manufactured to me. Felt like she had like stage parents who were like, you're gonna be a protester, you're gonna be an activist, and it just didn't feel authentic to me. Nothing about her felt authentic. So I spent a little time doing some extra digging on Greta Thunberg, and this is what did I get on little Greta? Where is this? I had this all saved. And where is it? So basically, I learned a little bit about Greta Thunberg today, and she is, as I assessed without even looking it up, from enormous wealth. She's from enormous wealth, and both of her parents are well-known and powerful people in the entertainment business. Her mom is a highly respected Swedish opera singer, and also an environmental activist and author whose name is Milena Ernman. Her father is Svante Thunberg, an actor, author, and producer. He has taken a background role in supporting Greta. He's basically producing Greta's activism at this point. Greta comes from a wealthy, culturally elite Swedish family. Her parents are both prominent figures in the arts. The family is well connected in Sweden's cultural and intellectual circles. Their wealth is upper middle class to upper class by Swedish standards, though not oligarchic or dynastic. They co-authored a book together titled Scenes from the Heart, later updated as Our House is on Fire, Scenes of a Family and a Planet in Crisis, which chronicles Greta's awakening and the family's transformations, including their shift to a low-carbon lifestyle. So that's all fine. Writing a book is fine. But the fact that they're both prominent figures in the arts and very wealthy, again, like, it's not I'm not saying if you're born rich you can't do a good deed and you can't have pure wants for the world to be better. Of course you can, but it's just kind of like it makes you go a little bit, because it's just like, all right, well, if her parents were already such prominent figures, like, why didn't they just do it? It seems like they stage parented Greta into doing it, which was always the assessment. And then, all right, and so we'll get into what she did. There was just something about, like, I think it's great to want to help Gaza. I think it's great to want to get aid there. There's all this talk about how, like, the IDF is, like, consistently blocking aid to Gaza. That's not, like, 100% true. Hamas is stealing a lot of the aid as it comes in. Israel has actually sent a lot of aid there. So, like, there's a lot of jumbled information about it. Again, I'm not on either side because I think there's a lot of bad stuff going on. No, the amount of people that, but again, reiterating, the amount of people, innocent people that have died in Gaza is disgusting, and it is a genocide, but I just believe it's a genocide that Hamas is in on. That's all. So let's go into this first independent article. So this is on the Greta Thunberg side. This is an op-ed by one of Greta Thunberg's friends, that says, that talks about why they feel that Greta needed to do this. I was also looking on another account. It's hard because everything when it comes to Gaza and Palestine, to me, feels really biased. So I read a lot from each side, and they're both so extreme, that's really hard to find the truth in the middle, as is the point of the show. But on Instagram, I do follow Montana Tucker. She is known mostly for being a dancer, but she does post a lot of information about Israel. And she was posting information when this first happened that said, number one, it kind of, if Greta's true intention was to get aid to Gaza, then why did she take a tiny boat that was mostly filled with other people and, like, influencer type activists and not actual aid? She was saying kind of like the amount of aid that they brought could basically help, like, a very small amount of people. So it seemed like it was more a performance stunt, which I think is kind of aligned with what Greta does. But sometimes you need to do performance stunts to get eyes on a cause, I think for climate change, it worked because we weren't talking about climate change enough. For this, we are talking about it enough, and these people actually do need aid and they do need help. And so her argument was like, why are you taking a tiny ship when you could take a cargo boat if you really meant to bring them aid? And then the second thing is, Greta started this whole conversation about how, she was, being kidnapped when pretty much the thought is that she knew she was never going to be able to dock that boat, because you can't just dock a boat anywhere. Like, you do need permission to dock boats. You can't just like sail up to a country and dock like anywhere. You can't do that. And then the fact that she was detained and sent back to her country, she's saying it was a kidnapping, which is like, number one, not true. That's not what kidnapping is. And secondly, kind of a slap in the face when there are actual hostages from Israel who were kidnapped and or who are still being held as hostages by Hamas. So like, that's kind of crazy. You know, and she filmed a video in advance saying like, if you see this video now, that means I've been kidnapped. So, you know, she wanted thing. My assessment is she want exactly what happened. She wanted to happen because she wanted to have more attention on her, and also a situation where Israel is vilified yet again. And so she can say, they kidnapped me, you know, these are horrible people, when she was doing a bunch of things that she would never have access to do, or no one would have access to do. And then, you know, had in advance filmed this dramatic video saying, if you see this, I've been kidnapped. So it just sucks because Gaza does need aid. And okay, well, my computer is completely frozen now. And so that just like kind of really, I thought that was like just very, very Greta of her. But anyway, let's read this piece. Sorry, I'll pull it up on my phone while this loads again, because, you know, there's always the time in the show when the computer gives out. Sorry, talk amongst yourselves, I suppose. God, I don't know why this happens. It's because we're in a basement is why it happens. Oh my God. Jesus. I can't read this far. I see it's on the screen. I can't read that far though. This is the problem. All right, here. It's finally come up here. Sorry. Bear with me, everybody. Okay, so this is from The Independent, as I said. Open link. Please, dear God, open this link. Anywhere. Open it anywhere. Oh my God. No, I don't want to download Chrome. Open it anywhere. Here we go. Okay. Again, from The Independent, why my friend Greta Thunberg had no choice but to sail an aid boat to Gaza. This is by Scarlett Westbrook. If I know anything about Greta, it is that she would want this moment to bring light to the ongoing repression and human rights violations of Palestinian civilians, writes fellow youth climate campaigner Scarlett Westbrook. The first time I met Greta Thunberg was in Plymouth in 2019. We were 15 and 16 years old, doing media appearances together around her, sailing to New York for the UN Climate Action Summit ahead of the global climate strike. For the first time, politicians were listening to young people's calls for climate justice, and millions of people were joining our strikes. Her voyage was surrounded by excitement and hope, followed in awe by people across the world. We never once needed to question her safety. The last time I saw her, she was on live-streamed footage of the Madeleine, which was intercepted by Israeli military forces. This time, the overriding feeling is terror, and the once supportive politicians are nowhere to be seen. The Madeleine is a UK-flagged civilian ship, part of the Freedom Flotilla that was en route to Gaza, carrying 5,500 tons of crucial humanitarian aid, including baby formula, food, and medical supplies. Greta and the 11 other civilians aboard the Madeleine were sailing to deliver this life-saving aid to Gaza, and their right to do so is entrenched in international law, which goes against what other people are reporting. But again, that's why it is. I find it this is like one of the most difficult stories to report on, because there just really is such a lack of any kind of centrist view on it. It's either Israel is 100% right or Palestine is 100% right. And like, just being a human alive, you know that neither of those could, in any situation, like that's pretty much never true. Greta and the 11 other civilians aboard the Madeleine were sailing to deliver this. Okay, wait, that was the same. For 11 weeks now, Israel has blocked humanitarian aid from entering Gaza. And again, even that have a lot of things that say that's not true. It's actually Hamas that has been blocking the aid from entering Gaza. So I don't know. They've been stealing it apparently. But I can't tell you for sure. I'm not there. And for the last 17 years, they have imposed an ongoing blockade that violates international law, leading to a starvation crisis with the Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, IPC, saying all 2.2 million civilians in Gaza are facing life-threatening food insecurity. Which is true. Like, that goes back to that UN report that they made it seem like there was like all these people that were going to die within a 48-hour period or something. But it was like, it was kind of just an alert that's saying like, if we don't act sooner rather than later, we will face this food insecurity. Like, this is an imminent food insecurity crisis. However, in the early hours of the morning, millions across the world watched another of Greta's voyages, this time in horror, as live stream footage showed them being intercepted by Israel occupation forces. The IOF jammed their radio signals and sent quadcopters that sprayed a white paint-like substance at them before boarding the boat and forcing the passengers to throw their phones overboard. Then the broadcast went dead. We haven't heard from any of the civilians on board since. Israel claims, and this was written previously, like Greta's fine. She literally was, this was written on June 10th. Today's June 11th when I'm doing this story. Greta was put on an airplane. There's plenty of photos of her, and she was sent home on an airplane. She's fine. A commercial airplane. Israel claims that the crew were taken to Ashdod port, and local Israeli media has reported that Israel's far-right National Security Minister Ben-Gvir has instructed prison officials to put the 12 civilians in detention in isolation. We have also now heard that Greta has been deported from Tel Aviv to Sweden via France, though the situation with the other 11 crew members remains unclear. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Katz also said yesterday that the flotilla would be shown a video from October 7th where around 1,200 people were killed by Hamas in what can only be described as an attempt at psychological torture. Okay. These killings were abhorrent and have been roundly condemned. Israel's subsequent attacks on Gaza since have killed more than 54,000 civilians, according to Palestinian health authorities, the majority of whom are women, children, and elderly people, with an estimated 125,000 injured. The 2.2 million citizens of Gaza, half of whom are children, have been displaced, while starvation, cholera, and inadequate medical care continue to claim Palestinian lives, alongside the continued military attacks on innocent civilians by Israel. Yes, agree with all that. This is not justified retaliation or war, with the Israeli defense minister saying the emphasis is on damage, not accuracy. Yes, agree. It is the systematic killing of an unarmed civilian population. Agree. The flotilla are not demonstrating selective empathy, as the Israeli government accuses. They are trying to bring aid to a region where the average age is just 15 years old. Their accusation can only be seen as a personal confession, as the thousands of murdered Palestinian civilians and children have not once been afforded a hint of compassion by the Israeli government, who continue their onslaught. The people of Gaza are not Hamas, and their right to food, water, and medicine has been violated by Israel for years. The flotilla are not in any way aligned with Hamas, and the mission is purely humanitarian, with no militant association of any kind. This narrative is solely being pushed to warrant violence against the flotilla, despite their legal right to deliver aid. AJ, can you do a little research on, like, I couldn't find it. I did it myself, but, like, while I'm finishing this, like, are they legally allowed to enter those waters and dock? Because Montana Tucker was presenting pieces that said no, and this piece is saying yes, and I just don't know the answer to that. I'm not a big boat girl, but I'd like to be. If anyone has a boat, hit me up, withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. This attack on the civilians aboard the Madeleine triggers state and individual liability under the Rome Statute, Geneva Conventions, and the Genocide Convention. Okay. All right. Not only this, but it is a direct attack on UK sovereignty and international law. The UN Convention on the Law of the Sea states that any interference by another state without the consent of the flag state is considered a violation of international law and the nation's sovereignty. By abducting the passengers of the Freedom Flotilla, Israel is not only violating international law, but undermining our sovereignty as a nation. And like, this is the part that confuses me because just like, so many people claim that Israel is breaking a lot of international laws. And it's like, well, okay, why isn't like the UN stepping in a bigger and better way? We must resist this at every level in the strongest terms. We have a legal responsibility to ensure the safe return of the Madeleine crew members and to respond to the unlawful interception and attack on our sovereignty. Israel has committed countless violations of international law, and this is not the first time. In 2010, Israeli commandos raided a small fleet of ships trying to bring humanitarian aid into Gaza, killing 9 peaceful civilians. I was terrified the same would happen to my friend. When will we stop letting these ruthless violations of international law happen? How many dead children is too many? What do these constant breaches of international law say about the strength of our governance? Rather than being a selfie boat, it is truly selfless, as the crew have put their lives on the line in an effort to bring aid to the most vulnerable people on the planet. And that's the part that I take issue with, because I don't think I think Greta damn well knew she wasn't getting that boat to Gaza. And I think that if she knew that she actually had to go into Gaza and face the terror that is going on in Gaza, I'm not talking about seeing the people, but actually, like the risk of getting killed in an airstrike or something, I truly don't believe she would have gone. If I know anything about Greta, it is that she would want this moment to bring light to the ongoing repression. I don't think that it is your job as an activist to put yourself in a place where you could get killed. I'm not saying that I think that she has to do that to be an activist taken seriously. Not at all. Not at all. I don't believe that at all. I just don't think that she ever thought she was actually getting the aid to Gaza. If I know anything about Greta, it is that she would want this moment to bring light to the ongoing repression and human rights violations of Palestinian citizens. Since her detainment yesterday, more than 60 people in Gaza have been killed in Israeli attacks, according to the local health authorities. I saw that in Al Jazeera as well. The fear that we have been, but again, bias, the fear that we have been feeling now for our friend has been the everyday reality for Palestinians for over 600 days. Valid. Palestine is a climate justice issue for countless reasons, most notably because it concerns human lives. Okay. But there are also many ways that the ongoing crisis directly impacts the planet. The carbon footprint of the first 15 months of Israel's war on Gaza. Well, this is where you're going to lose people, because when all these lives are lost, I don't think people really care about the carbon footprint as much as the what is the previous number that you presented, 54,000 innocent human lives that were lost. The carbon footprint of the first 15 months of Israel's war on Gaza is greater than the annual planet-warming emissions of 100 countries combined. Delivering aid is not a crime, but arresting and abducting peaceful humanitarians in international waters is. The UK and the international community must step up now to ensure the safe and immediate release of all of the 12 civilians aboard the Madeleine, alongside an immediate ceasefire, free passage of humanitarian aid, and an end to the illegal siege of Gaza. It is our moral and legal collective duty to stop the continued murder of innocent children, women, and men, and free the innocent humanitarians who have tried to help. Did you find any information?
Somewhat. What was the question? What's their reasoning for it?
Is there, can you present me with information that either says she does have the legal okay to sail international waters and dock, or doesn't she? Because I have two completely different takes on that.
Yeah, so basically there's been a naval blockade by Israel.
Okay.
Because Israel's trying to make sure that no weapons are getting in. So by
Gaza.
Yeah, but so by doing this, they sort of made this blanket agreement that we're not allowing anything in, including
a blanket agreement with who?
With themselves.
Oh, okay.
We're not going to allow any outside, like help, any humanitarian, nothing. It doesn't matter if you have bread, food, guns. We don't know. Nobody's coming in.
Okay, but they are, but
So no one's allowed
they
in.
are, so then that clears up the language then. So when we are reading,
There's a legal naval blockade. That's what they believe, that they're doing what they are allowed to do.
okay.
And
But
so,
why are they allowed to have a blockade to Gaza? That's because they oversee that. Because that, it seems like they should be allowed to have a naval blockade to Israel, but why to Palestine?
yeah, it seems like the Palestinians are the ones getting the collateral damage from this because they're not able to get any sort of.
Yeah, because they're treating it all as one space. Okay, so then that clarifies, like, when we read all these headlines about how Israel has been blocking humanitarian aid into Gaza, it is true then that they are blocking humanitarian aid from other countries. But what is not being reported is that they have sent personally. Israel has sent a ton of humanitarian aid to Gaza, but Hamas usually blocks that and steals that for themselves. So this is an instance of like, okay, both these things are true, but no one's ever reporting both things at the same time because this story is reported with such bias on either side, and it's crazy. Okay, that cleared up a lot.
Did you think there's any chance that she was going to be abducted or anything bad happened to her?
No, she wouldn't. I don't believe she would have done it. I don't really think she's. I don't think she's brave in that way. I think she's like a rich kid who hadn't gotten attention in a while.
So she knew that they would kind of handle her gently. And
Well, of
just
course,
put her on
she
her
knows
center on
Israel
her.
is smart and strategic, and they're not going to murder the most famous climate activists because the rest of the world would Israel already has such bad press. The rest of the world would have eaten that up. They're going to handle her with kid gloves, as we saw on video. They gave her sandwiches when she came.
Yeah, they said that she only had about a truck worth of food.
Yeah, that's the point. That she it was such an unhelpful amount. And I'm sorry, when you are that level of activist, like this is like to me, she was sailing aid to Gaza as if she was a kindergarten class. When they try to put like packs of tissues and chapstick in envelopes and send them to people in the army, like active military people. Like it's something like to make you feel good or to make some kind of a statement, but it's not actually helping. And because of the seriousness and the level of activism Greta Thunberg is at, there's not a fucking second that I believe that she knew this wasn't completely for optics. And I double down on, I don't believe there's any chance if she actually thought she was getting into Gaza that she would have gone, because I don't think she wants to be in Gaza. I call BS on this nonsense. And everyone's like, it's great that she wants to. It is great that she wants to help, but it's also like a little odd that she wants to help when she hasn't gotten press in a long time with like the most, popular crisis that's going on with an amount of aid that's not actually helpful. When you talk about 54,000 deaths and then you're bringing one truckload, like stop. Again, kind of as Montana Tucker said, if you really want to help, you show up with a cargo ship. I don't know. And then now this is taking time away from like actually what could actually helped. Bother me. I get it. It's good to get attention on it, but it's just like, oh, you were already all talking about it. So like Greta Thunberg isn't helping in this instance, like the way she was with climate change, because we weren't talking about climate change. And Greta Thunberg, even though I don't love her, did get us talking about climate change, and that's good. All right. So the next article. So this I found was interesting, and this is something I found again initially in like a very pro-Israel, Israel Times or something. And I said, well, if it's only there, I'm not going to report it because I can't trust it. But I found it reported in just regular Yahoo News. So this says London-based Hamas operative behind Greta Thunberg's Gaza flotilla. Because that's what I heard. I heard that it was like there was a person in Hamas behind this. And I think this is Yahoo taking it from the Telegraph in the UK. I believe that's what this means when they put the Telegraph up ahead here. But, is that okay? I guess that's okay. Again, it's just not Telegraph periodical. I just want to make sure that's... Yeah, so it's it's a daily British... So keep in mind, this is taken from the Telegraph, which is a conservative newspaper in the UK. So I do want you to know that, full disclosure. So that would still be Israel leaning. Obviously a pro-Palestinian media outlet is not going to be printing this article, though. So again, London-based Hamas operative behind Greta Thunberg's Gaza flotilla. And I felt like that piece pairs with, hearing from her best friend. So that's fair. We're getting both sides. A man accused of being a Hamas operative based in London is a key figure behind Greta Thunberg's Gaza-bound aid boat. It emerged on Monday. Zahar Be'arwi, who was described in Parliament as a person with links to Hamas, called himself a founding member of the Freedom Flotilla International Coalition, which arranged the voyage by the aid boat Madeleine. Israeli forces boarded and seized the boat on Sunday, detaining the 12 pro-Palestinian activists it was carrying, including Ms. Thunberg, as it attempted to bring a symbolic amount of aid to Gaza in defiance of an Israeli naval blockade. Okay, so even here, when we use the word symbolic, we're saying this wasn't actually to help. This was to get attention on Gaza. And normally getting attention on something that no one's talking about is fine. But here it's we're already talking about this. And now you're just making it about yourself, Greta Thunberg. Mr. Be'arawi, a Palestinian British journalist at an Arabic language satellite TV channel in London, was at the launch of the Madeleine a week ago, live streaming it from its dock in Sicily. Ms. Thunberg gave a speech before the boat set sail for Gaza. In 2013, Mr. Be'arawi was named by Israel as a Hamas operative in Europe and is the head of the Europol Forum, which Israel designated as a terrorist organization in 2021. So basically, again, terrorist is in the eye of the beholder. I feel like countries, anyone, if you are against a country, in that country's book, you are a terrorist. That's basically what I think we've learned on this show. The Europol Forum has strongly denied any terror links, and in 2021, Mr. Barwani, now they spelled his name differently. Okay, that's a typo. Received compensation after taking legal action against a financial database he said had wrongly placed him on a terrorism watch list. He denied ever being involved in any illegal acts within the scope of terrorism crimes. Speaking in the Commons in October 2023, Christian Wakeford, the Labour MP for Bury South, used parliamentary privilege to name 63-year-old Mr. Be'arawi as a Hamas operative living in Barnet, North London. He is listed as a trustee of a UK-registered charity, Education Aid for Palestinians, and publicly available video shows him hosting a 2019 event in London titled Understanding Hamas, Mr. Wakeford told MPs. 2 weeks ago, Hamas launched the deadliest terror attack the world has seen on 9/11. This is a quote from him. It is therefore a serious national security risk for Hamas operatives to be living here in London, especially where at least one appears to have done so through the use of fake documents in obtaining British citizenship. There is no suggestion that Mr. Barwani, they keep spelling it two different ways, was involved in the October 7th attack. Hamas has been prescribed as a terror group in the UK under the Terrorism Act 2000 since 2021. Mr. Be'arawi was photographed in 2012 with Ismail Haniyeh, the former Hamas leader who was assassinated last year by an explosive device suspected to have been placed by Israeli agents in his guest house in Tehran. Mr. Barawi is linked to several charities and organizations and has helped organize protests against Israel in London since the outbreak of the Gaza war. In a Facebook post following the Israeli operation on Sunday, Mr. Barari wrote, in a piracy operation in international waters and 150 nautical miles from Palestinian waters, the Israeli Navy took control of the ship Madeleine and abducted the allies on board. The Freedom Flag Alliance demands international intervention to ensure their safety and release. Mr. Barari wrote of the Madeleine mission earlier this month. It carries a message of solidarity with Gaza, a message of defiance and determination to continue popular efforts to break the Israeli blockade of the Gaza Strip. He added that it was an affirmation of the Palestinians' fundamental right to communicate with the world by sea and their right to establish a humanitarian corridor to bring in aid and relief supplies during the war of extermination waged by Israeli occupation state against Gaza. And like, I agree, like, it is weird to me that Israel, like, I understand, like, you want to block weapons from getting into Gaza, but to just then create a blockade and so you can't get anything, like, okay, weird. But then again, apparently they have sent a ton of their own aid to the people of Gaza that Hamas is blocking, because they continuously want bad press for Israel. And like, they're doing a really good job of that. As the chairman, but also Israel is like killing a ton of people. And like, Hamas is purposely hiding among civilians, it seems. But it's also like, okay, well, we can't just then like kill a bunch of innocent people. It's not like the first time in history that this is, something like this has happened, but still not good. Very bad, I would say. As the chairman of Europol Forum, Mr. Borari delivered a letter to the cabinet condemning Israel. What we are witnessing is not a war, it is a genocide, yes. And this systematic erasure of a people, yes. The Israeli leadership is not hiding its objectives. It is openly pursuing ethnic cleansing while the world watches. I don't agree that that's actually what they're pursuing, but because there's way more Muslim people in the world than Jewish people. But again, I think it's like Hamas is working in conjunction with Israel in a genocide against the people of Gaza specifically, for sure. The UK must rise above platitudes and take concrete action to halt complicity in these times. Mr. Barari met Jeremy Corbyn in Parliament 6 months before the politician became Labour leader in 2015. Mr. Barari took legal action against a financial database. After NatWest closed his account, he claimed the database had wrongly and without justification or evidence classified him on a terrorism list. My legal team relied primarily on the fact that there has never been any legal sentence passed against me by any official authority in any state anywhere in the world, and that never have I been found to have been involved in any illegal acts which could be deemed within the scope of terrorism crimes, Mr. Barawi was quoted as saying at the time. He claimed the database had relied on lists prepared by Israel and inaccurate news websites, likely driven by political motives and agendas not based on objective evidence, which caused hurt and damage to me. The company behind the database denied it had a terror list, but gathered information in the public domain. If it was incorrect or updated, that was reflected in the database. Mr. Barari had been approached for comment. Early on Monday, Israel's military detained Ms. Thunberg, 22, and other activists after intercepting the aid boat. Drones surrounded the Madeleine and dropped a white irritant substance before soldiers boarded around 2 a.m. BST, according to the group behind her mission. Ms. Thunberg and 11 other passengers from the Madeleine are being taken to the Israeli port of Ashdod, where the IDF has been ordered to show them a video of Hamas's attack. We all know all this. I think all this other stuff is the same. Yeah. This is the same. And then a little bit pro-Palestine protesters clashed with police outside the Foreign Office On Monday afternoon, as they demonstrated in support of the flotilla, officers were forced to push back masked activists, as a number of whom were arrested. Protesters were seen carrying signs declaring no climate justice without a free Palestine and calling for the boycott of Israeli-made products. And that is the Foreign Office in London. This looks like, right? Yeah. These cops are definitely British. Okay. All right. So that's the other side. And then I had one more article, but I don't know that. So yeah, this was the article that I had put about can it do that? Like if she's legally allowed to. So this is from the Associated Press, and it's basically, Israel seized a Gaza-bound boat with Greta Thunberg on board. Can it do that? All right, so let's skip to the part where they talk about the actual law. So, they're saying it's not the first time that Israel has halted ships carrying aid bound for Palestinian territory. A raid in 2010 descended into violence between activists and Israeli commandos, leaving 8 Turks and 1 Turkish American killed. We talked about that before. We didn't specifically, I don't think, know that they were Turkish. Most of the other operations against Gaza-bound boats have ended uneventfully, with ships diverted and activists detained. So same as what happened to Greta. Israel says the latest ship planned to violate its blockade on Gaza and says it acted in accordance with international law. Can Israel storm a ship in the high seas? Here is a look at the legal debate. So the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, which organized the latest ship, says the Madeleine was intercepted in international waters some 124 miles off the coast of Gaza, a claim that could not be independently verified. Israeli authorities have not disclosed the location where the ship was halted. Robbie Sable, an international law expert and former legal advisor to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, said the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea stipulates that a state only has jurisdiction up to 12 nautical miles from its shores. In general, states don't have the right to seize ships in international waters, but there are exceptions, including during armed conflict, Sable added. He said that even before the latest war, Israel was in an armed conflict with Hamas, allowing it to intercept ships it suspected were violating its long-standing blockade of Gaza, which Egypt also enforced. Rights groups have long criticized the blockade as unlawful collective punishment against Palestinians. Sable cited a UN report on the 2010 raid that ended in activist fatalities, which stated that attempts to breach a lawfully imposed naval blockade place the vessel and those on board at risk. The debate over the legality of Israel's blockade remains unresolved among legal experts. The UN report urged states to be cautious in the use of force against civilian vessels and called on humanitarian missions to deliver aid through regular channels. It said a country maintaining a naval blockade must abide by their obligations with respect to the provision of humanitarian assistance. A debate over Israel's right to act. Yuval Shani, an expert on international law at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, said that so long as Israel's blockade of Gaza is militarily justified, meant to keep out weapons, and the ship intended to break it, Israel can intercept the vessel after prior warning. Which makes it seem like then it seems like the protocol should be the ship, arrives with the intention to dock. The IDF would then have the right to go onto the ship and look around to make sure that there are no weapons, and then they should let the aid come in. Like, that's what it seems like would be fair in my assessment. Whether the blockade is militarily justified is also up for debate. Suhad Bashara, head of the legal department at Adalah, a legal rights group in Israel representing the activists, said Israel was not justified in acting against a ship in international waters that posed no military threat. In principle, Israel cannot extend an arm into international waters and carry out whatever action against a ship there, she said. Israeli Foreign Ministry spokesperson Oren Mamorstein said that everything that was done in accordance with international law, referring to the ship takeover. Gaza and Israel's obligations under international law. Rights groups say the legal questions are complicated by Gaza's unique status. The United Nations and much of the international community view Gaza as Israeli-occupied territory, which was kind of the question that I was asking earlier, along with East Jerusalem and the West Bank, all of which Israel captured in the 1967 Mideast War. The Palestinians want the three territories to form their future state. Israel argues that it withdrew from Gaza in 2005 when it pulled out its soldiers and settlers, even though it maintained control over Gaza's coastline, airspace, and most of its land border. Hamas, which does not accept Israel's existence, seized power in Gaza 2 years later. Amnesty International says Israel has an obligation as the occupying power to make sure that Palestinians in Gaza have enough access to humanitarian supplies, something Amnesty says Israel was preventing by not allowing the Madleen through. Amnesty and other groups see the seizure of the Madleen as part of a campaign by Israel throughout the war to limit or entirely deny aid into Gaza. Israel says it has allowed enough aid to enter Gaza to sustain the population and accuses Hamas of siphoning it off, while UN agencies and aid groups deny there has been any systematic diversion. And again, it's like, are they there? Who really knows? Israel's aid policy during the war has driven the territory toward famine, experts say, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is accused by the International Criminal Court of using starvation as a method of warfare by restricting humanitarian aid into Gaza, charges he has directed. Which, again, it's like the rest of the world needs to step in a bigger way than a flotilla. By forcibly intercepting and blocking the Madleen, which was carrying humanitarian aid and a crew of solidarity activists, Israel has once again flouted its legal obligations towards civilians in the occupied Gaza Strip. Amnesty International Secretary General Agnes Callamard said in a statement. The group called for the immediate and unconditional release of the activists who, it said, were on a humanitarian mission, which no matter what it was for, it was a humanitarian mission. I don't think they were trying to bring weapons. All right. And then let's wrap it up with one more girl. So much Trump is doing. Obviously, the ICE protests, keep your eyes on that. New York, LA, especially. I do want to briefly state that, yes, it was brought to my attention that the Economic Times printed an article on June 9th saying that, they've done additional, looking into it, and that there was a bombshell report that claims voting machines were tampered with before the 2024 election, and that Kamala Harris actually did win the election. There was a bit of a conspiracy theory that we, went through right when this election happened. I just wanted to say that I have seen this. That being said, the Economic Times is an Indian newspaper, and this is the only place where this was reported. So I'll put a pin in it. I'm aware of it. I cannot present this to you as real information as of now yet. This is the only place where this was being reported as of now. And let's see. Yeah. And I guess the last thing I'll talk about is I'll read a New York City it's a local article about ICE protests. I know they're happening in LA as well, so I just want to do something from the city. I like the city's reporting mostly. I'm not on good terms with local political journalists right now. But this is NYPD arrests dozens as thousands of New Yorkers join LA in protesting ICE raids. People flooded lower Manhattan on Tuesday evening to decry Trump's immigration crackdown. Thousands of New Yorkers flooded the streets of lower Manhattan Tuesday evening, protesting the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, which in New York City has been playing out inside immigration courthouses for 3 weeks. They're luring people in, saying that you have to come here, for a hearing about your status, and then they're detaining them. They're deporting people. It's absolutely disgusting behavior. Truly fuck ICE. The throng gathered in Foley Square denouncing raids that have taken place in the city and across the country. Many voiced support for protesters in Los Angeles, where large demonstrations have been going on since Friday, and where President Donald Trump ordered the National Guard and the Marines to quell the demonstrations. Anytime what has mostly been, from what I've seen, peaceful demonstrations, and you're getting the National Guard called and the Marines called on you by the president, again, just reeking of authoritarianism. To the liberals who are too busy criticizing the protesters in Los Angeles, take that energy and use it on the state violence that is being used. I don't know who's criticizing them. Activist Linda Sarsour shouted to the crowd, "The root of our problem is not protesters. The root of our problem is mass men kidnapping men and women and students." Agree. I haven't actually even heard anyone on the left criticizing the protesters. Sarsour was referring to weeks of arrests by immigration and customs enforcement agents who are often seen across the city covering their faces with masks. In New York City, ICE has spent the past 3 weeks staking out immigration courthouses, arresting people attending regular court hearings, often in their attempt to apply for asylum, in the hallways, lobbies, and even bathrooms of the court buildings. Hundreds of protesters left Foley Square to march across lower Manhattan and then north on Church Street on Tuesday. Among them was 23-year-old Marilyn, whose family is from Ecuador and whose father is undocumented. "I'm speaking up for my family. They're immigrants in this country, but they're not criminals," she said, choosing not to share her full name for fear of repercussions for her relatives. Good choice, Marilyn. "The immigration raids and courthouse arrests have weighed heavily on the family in recent weeks," she said. "He's like, if they take me, they take me. But at the same time, I know he's scared because he's going to leave behind 3 kids," she said of her dad. As several hundred marchers continued north, a splinter group returned to the corner of Duane and Broadway outside 26 Federal Plaza, the government building that contains several floors of immigration courts, as well as a floor where people taken into custody at hearings have been detained. It has been the epicenter of ICE activity of the past few weeks, and the street outside has been a locus for demonstrations in recent days. Tuesday's protest was the largest yet, with several hundred people gathering on either side of Duane Street, which is closed off to all but federal vehicles. The demonstrators were met with dozens of NYPD officers from the Strategic Response Group on either side of the roadway. As demonstrators tried to block the entrance to the street, NYPD officers forced their way into the crowd and pushed protesters onto adjacent sidewalks, making several aggressive arrests. A standoff with demonstrators went on for more than 3 hours as NYPD occasionally grabbed and arrested people who stepped off the sidewalk and sometimes rushed onto the sidewalk to make arrests, pulling people into the street and shoving them onto the roadway. They appeared to make several dozen arrests over the course of the evening. An NYPD spokesperson said Wednesday that 34 people had been arrested and held, with 52 more receiving criminal court summonses. "I'm mad. I'm furious," said one protester earlier in the evening, a 20-year-old who had traveled from Staten Island to join the protest and declined to give his name out of concern for his parents' immigration status. "My parents and my family, they come from a lot of hard work, and I feel like a lot of their hard work over these past 2 or 3 decades that they've been here is going to waste because some people can't put their pride aside and understand that we're the forefront of this country." Skirmishes went on until late in the night, punctuated by chaotic arrests, chanting, and at one point, even a bagpiper, because liberals still got to be liberals. On Monday, Mayor Eric Adams, who has directed his administration to not publicly criticize Trump, seemed to side with the president in blaming the protesters, saying that the escalation of protests in Los Angeles over the last couple of days is unacceptable and will not be tolerated in our city. I really have not, the protests in LA have been large, but not violent from what I've seen. Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch, who stood with the mayor, said the NYPD will protect every person's right to protest peacefully, but warned they would act swiftly to quell any disruptions. We have no tolerance for violence, none. Well, I mean, I guess apparently except when it comes to ICE. We have no tolerance for property damage. We have no tolerance for people blocking entrances to buildings or blocking driveways or blocking cars from moving, she said. And any attacks against law enforcement will be met with a swift and decisive response from the NYPD. The commissioner and mayor were flanked by NYPD Chief of Department John Chell and Deputy Mayor of Public Safety Kaz Daughtry, who days earlier had played a round of golf with Trump on their private time, they said, at his New Jersey course. Neither the commissioner nor the mayor took any questions. The New York Post reported Tuesday that Trump had promised Chell and Daughtry that he wouldn't send military into New York so long as the NYPD kept demonstrators, quote, in line. Protesters have made several attempts in recent weeks to block vans used to transport detainees from entering and exiting immigration courthouse buildings. In late May, around 24 people were arrested by the NYPD after they tried to stop a van from leaving another immigration court on Varick Street. This weekend, federal agents in tactical gear were unable to move protesters to allow a van to pass until they called in dozens more NYPD officers for backup, who quickly pushed demonstrators aside, making several arrests and used pepper spray on some. On Tuesday, the crowd had grown substantially from recent days, but with dozens of NYPD officers stationed all around the building, vehicles entering and exiting the plaza faced no major disruption. One protester who joined the crowd, named Giselle, 24, who declined to give her last name because of her family's immigration status, said her uncle, who is also undocumented from Ecuador, had decided that after 35 years of not leaving the U.S., he would now self-deport. The very first thing he's going to do is he's going to travel for the first time in his entire adult life, she said. He's going to travel, he's going to take his hard-earned money, and he's going to live off of it in his retirement in Ecuador. So I'm embracing that because what else can you do? Honestly, that sounds better. He shouldn't have had to do that, but sounds good. It's a fear I have to live with every day, said one protester, 20, whose parents are Mexican and undocumented. It's always in the back of my mind what I can do if my parents are ever arrested. And so I feel that it's my right as a citizen, as a woman, as a person to come and show up. And again, if you guys want more information on how to help yourself or your family if you're undocumented, how to help other people in your community who are undocumented, or also what to do if you are a U.S. citizen who is detained, which is also happening. Definitely recommend following Attorney Martinez on Instagram. She does a lot of really helpful videos. It's basically like getting free legal advice. And she has one Instagram that she does in English, and she has one Instagram that she does in Spanish. So super, super helpful information. Highly recommend her. Even AOC thanked her for all the work that she's doing. That's not why I know her. I know her, before AOC mentioned her. I organically, someone actually knows someone, I believe a listener of either this show or GWF recommended her to me, and I've been following her for a long time because of that, and it was a great recommendation. So yeah, that is the show for today. Thank you so much for listening, for being a part of this, for emailing me. There is so much to do in this coming week, right? If you're a New Yorker, early voting for these Democratic primaries starts June 14th. In-person voting is June 24th. You want to rank 5 candidates. Hopefully none of them are Andrew Cuomo, but fill in those 5 lines. Again, if you can write me in, and that will count as one of the lines. I am legally registered as a candidate still, so I legally count when you write me in. It's very weird that I have to be legally registered to be a write-in. That being said, it's still true. Fill in those 5 lines though. And then secondly, we want to keep doing that call to action by calling Speaker Hastie's office. Again, you're calling 518-455-3791 and 518-455-4032. And I think there's one more number on my Instagram. Call that as well. And say it's time that lawmakers pass Bill A-101 to get rid of the voluntary intoxication exclusion. That's all you got to say. And again, I think all Americans can call. And if they question you or ask you, like, are you a New York voter? And you're not, say, like, no, I'm from such and such state, but this is, an American issue, and New York often sets the precedent for other states. So get it done. Like, you're an American voter. You can do that, or they're not going to check your voter registration anyway. So even if you're not a voter, make the damn call. So we're going to do that. Again, deadline for that getting done before break is June 17th, which is Tuesday. And then again, if you want to participate in this No Kings March, they're happening all over the country. It's nokings.org. I will be at the New York one again, 2 p.m. at the Fountain at Bryant Park is where we start off. And I will be, I don't know who I'm working with. Maybe I'm working with Dream to not rank Andrew Cuomo. I'm working with, this Bill A-101. And I'm certainly there to say, fuck ICE. But I'll be there for all those things. And, keep sending me your municipal stories to withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to sign up for the Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. Follow me on all social media @philanthropygal. And thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time and your energy and your interest in the world in which you live. I think that's really cool. And if anyone else says anything differently, fuck them. Bye. And remember, the truth is in there. Have a good night. Peace.
Running from the man, yeah, the madman's coming, yeah, the man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive.